Happy New Year to everyone. 2021. I'm sure I'm not the only one who is very glad to see the back of 2020. And I'm very curious to find out what 2021 is going to hold for us. G'day my lovelies and welcome back to my channel in 2021. And if you are new here, my name is Kathy and this is where I talk about my plants and all my other pet hobbies. And you'll find that I have a lot of hobbies. Anyway, I wanted to wish you all the very best in 2021. I hope it brings you nothing but joy, laughter and lots of love. Now, I don't know if you guys are aware, but the wonderful, fabulous Nicole from Nicole Clean Leaves set up a collaboration with 20 or so plant YouTubers to share the lessons we learned in 2020. And if you haven't seen that video, you really should. And I'll link it somewhere here. I know it's always on this side. Honestly, I found it such a wonderful experience and the lessons were so heartfelt that I think you might need a box of tissues. Well, I did anyway. Now, after watching Nicole's video, I found myself reflecting on what else I learned in 2020, particularly in relation to my plants. So I decided to create this video where I will share with you 5 plant lessons that I feel I learned in 2020. Because as far as I'm concerned, I am still a student when it comes to plants, and I think I will always be one. I don't consider myself an expert by any stretch of the imagination, regardless of how much time I spend with my plants or how much I read. I think it's a constant learning process, in my opinion anyway, and that is partly why I love plants so much, because I'm always learning something new. Okay, so let's start off with plant lesson number 1. The first thing I learned is that patience is its own reward. I don't think I'm a very impatient person. I have struggled over the years to learn patience, I will admit. However, I think as I've gotten older, I've learned that patience will pay off. And I have definitely noticed that with plants, you do need patience. I know sometimes it's really hard to be patient, that when you see a leaf that is taking months to unfurl, you just want to help it along. But usually we cause them damage because plants do grow at their own pace. And we can try to help them by giving them, say, fertilizer or a helping hand on occasion, but there is a limit to how much we can help them. I have a black cardinal, philodendron. Mr. Ugly is his name. I don't name a lot of my plants, but he deserved that one. However, I must admit, even though I do think he's Mr. Ugly, I really love him because he's so unusual looking, but he is so slow to grow. I have given him highlight, I have given him low light. It doesn't matter what I give him. He will grow at his own pace. And he has taken months to unfurl one leaf, and I'm not exaggerating. And I think it is simply that is his pace. I may wish that he will grow faster, but it's not going to change anything. And as I said, I have discovered that waiting for my plants to grow at their own pace has its own reward. Because sometimes they do surprise me and all of a sudden I'll find a new leaf growing where I hadn't seen one the week before. My Monstera deliciosa, my absolutely favourite plant. I noticed a few weeks ago that it hadn't put out a new leaf in ages and I was wondering if there was an issue. Because, you know, we are impatient. We just want them to grow, especially as it is the growing season in Melbourne because it is summer here. And then last week, I looked at it again and I thought, oh, there's a new leaf. And the day after that, I saw there was a second new leaf and I thought, there's no point in my worrying or stressing about this plant. It will grow at its own pace. So I think that is a very good lesson that I learned in 2020. Now, the flip side of that, and this is lesson number 2, is that I can lose patience with certain plants, and I think that is okay too. There are some plants that you can stress over, you can worry about, and I know I have talked about this in my Falling Out of Love Plants video, where you feel like, I just can't take this plant anymore for whatever reason. Perhaps because it's not thriving well in your home, perhaps because it gets pests a lot. Whatever the reason is, I think there's nothing wrong with losing patience with a plant and saying, no, I'm done. I do not want to have this plant. I don't want to worry about this plant anymore. I think we need to recognize when we get to that point and say, enough. I don't know if anyone else has to do this, but I often have to chase my cat out of the house because she's eating my dog's food. I have a little devil of a cat, if people don't know. Her name is Maya, and she is sometimes the bane of my life. So anyway, I do apologize for the interruption. I don't think it is unhealthy to sometimes lose patience with a particular plant or plants. And I know that we are often racked with guilt. We think, oh my God, I'm letting this plant down, and what have I done? But sometimes for our own, I don't want to call it mental health, but just sometimes for our own peace of mind, if a plant or plants are causing you more stress and worry or guilt than joy, then I think there is nothing wrong with saying, no, I'm done with this plant and I should get rid of it, whether I give it to someone else, trade it, whatever it is. So that was also a very good lesson for me, to not feel so guilty about letting go of some of my plants. Okay. Number 3 is that I have been in denial for a long time, but I am an overwaterer, which I honestly didn't think I was. I thought I was being very careful and measured with how much I watered my plants, but I have killed so many Peperomia caparatas, I cannot seem to keep them alive, that I have finally accepted that I am an overwaterer. And I think this lesson was one I wish I had learned earlier. I did a lot of research when I first started bringing plants home as to watering, how much water to give your plants, how often you should give your plants water. I initially was of the view that you had to water your plants every week like clockwork, and I learned very quickly that that is definitely the wrong way to water your plants. And I also watched a lot of videos on how to water your plants. I read up on bottom watering, watering from the top. I did so much research on it, and I thought I had a fairly good handle on when to water my plants and when not to water my plants. I still don't know how I can be an overwaterer because I use a moisture meter. I take several readings before I water a plant, and yet my Peperomia caparatas keep dying. And I realized, well, obviously I'm not getting it right. Something is wrong here. I have learned to change how I water. I usually like to water my plants very, very thoroughly. So what I decided to do was get one of those little water squeeze bottles and give my peperomias just a little bit of water. Didn't matter, I still ended up killing them. And I think that's because I am an overwaterer, that I'm clearly giving them more water than they need. And I need to do more research and more investigation as to how I can stop killing my Peperomia caparatas. Okay, number 4. What I've learned is that pests, yes, are very scary, but they can be managed. It's not to say that it doesn't worry me whenever I find pests on a plant, but I have noticed that I'm not panicking as much as I was, say, the year before. I've learned that, yes, it's a horrible thing to get pests on your plants, and nobody wants to get pests, but it will happen. And there's no point panicking. It's more important to learn how to deal with it quickly and efficiently and consistently. I did find spider mites on some of my plants in winter, which is June in Australia, or the beginning of winter is in June. And I had a freak out, as I usually do. Prior to that, what I would often do is put my plants outside and let the natural predators kill off all the pests. But it was winter and I couldn't do that. So I did a lot of research about how to deal with spider mites, and I treated my plants. And I found that it worked. My plants recovered, the mites seemed to have disappeared, and everything seemed to be going well. And then about a month or 2 months ago, I noticed that my Ficus teakii didn't seem to be happy. I saw that all the new growth points that it had put out for spring weren't growing. So I investigated and I found spider mites, which really surprised me because my teakii sits in a room far away from the other plants that did get spider mites earlier in the year. And it had been several months since I had found any spider mites on any of my plants. Regardless, I have treated the teakii as well and it has recovered. However, unfortunately, the new growth is pretty much gone for this year, and I'm going to have to wait another year before it will grow. Yes, getting pests is scary, and yes, we stress about it. God knows I do. You can even panic. I have been known to panic, or maybe not panic, but it is also part of having plants. It's a bit like trying to live your life and expecting to never have any negatives in it. It's just not possible. Having now had to deal with pests, spider mites, I feel that, yes, I'm not looking forward to the next time I get them, but I feel that I'm more well equipped to deal with them. And that is a good thing. That means that I won't freak out the next time, that I may even deal with it quicker. I think it also helped me become more vigilant, to look at my plants more carefully, more often. The trials and tribulations of YouTubers when your battery dies in the middle of a sentence. Okay, lesson number 5. I think this is the biggest one for me, and that lesson is to not bring new plants into my home unless I love them. I am no longer willing to just add plants for the sake of having more plants. I want to have plants in my home that I really love, and only those that I really love, for several reasons. One is that the more plants I have, the more work they involve. The second is that I have limited space. And the third is that I only really enjoy looking after those plants I really do love. Having some plants that I'm a little lukewarm about, I notice I just don't give them the attention that they deserve. And I can even resent some of those plants which I really don't love. And I don't want to feel resentment towards my plants. I want to love all of them. Now, that's not to say I love them all equally, of course not. But if a plant is in my home and I find I don't really love it, then I would prefer to give it away, to gift it, trade it, or sell it. And I have noticed that even though it is summer here and there are so many new plants that I could get, I am not inclined to get them. I am much more selective about what I do bring into my home. That doesn't mean I don't get any plants, of course not, but I can now safely go to a nursery or to Bunnings and come home with no plants. which is amazing because that was certainly not what I did the year before or last summer. It seemed that I was bringing plants home every time I went to a nursery or to Bunnings. And I think maybe I needed to finally get to this point to realize what I do like, what I don't like, what I want to have in my home and what I don't want to have in my home. For me, that was part of my plant journey, is to work out that I don't need to have lots of plants. I need to have plants that I really love, that I really enjoy looking after. And what I really like about this last lesson is that now every time I look at a plant, I know it's one I really love. Because if it isn't, I'll find a new home for it. Because isn't there nothing better than having a plant you love and being able to look at it and just, I don't know, but that's what I do. I will sigh. I will sit there. I will touch its leaves. I will admire it from every single angle. That tells me this is a plant that I love. And I think they know it too when you love them. And for those who are curious, this is my Peperomia Rene Verde, which is doing really well, I hope. Oh man, I don't know. So that is the 5 plant lessons that I feel I learned in 2020. Let me know what you think of my lessons, and also I would love it if you would share with me what plant lessons you feel you learned in 2020. And you can let me know down in the comments, or you can contact me on Instagram. Again, I wanted to thank Nicole from My Clean Leaves for inspiring me to create this video. I also wanted to thank all of you for hanging out with me and watching this video. I very much appreciate it. And I have recently discovered that I stole that from Adam from Not Dude. So sorry, Adam. Anyway, now, as always, I'm going to ask you guys to like, comment, or subscribe. Again, I wish you all the very best in 2021, and I hope you all have a wonderful day and a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next time. Bye.